Well, today I'd like to talk about climate change and the world. Now, I believe personally that the systems and technologies of the world and how it was built and how it will always be is a lot more complex than us human beings can imagine or truly understand because it's something that we never created. And people have a capacity to think that they have control over everything in existence, everything. And the fact that we haven't even fucking begun to explore the universe is testament to this fact that people will kind of explain that we know it all, we're the ultimate creators, when in reality we're such a little tiny piece of the puzzle. It's not even funny. Now, there's no denying the fact that we're the dominant species on this planet, but this planet and its systems are so much more complex and powerful than we could ever possibly imagine. I mean, if you look at the volcanic activity in the world, it could easily just wipe us off the map like we never even existed. But like in terms of the actual overall climate and the systems of this world and the temperatures and the jet streams and the cooling and warming of different surfaces and all the science that goes into that, we're so powerless to this. But at the same time, so many people have created all this, these problems for the environment. The greenhouse effect. I mean, it's real, and people hate to admit it is because they live in these perfect little lives and they have the fucking, they're either fucking rich or they're privileged in life and they fucking have everything they need. So they want to push everything out of it. The economy's bad, people are losing their jobs, it's not that bad. Don't worry about it. Climate change isn't real. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't hurt. It won't hurt me because it's called like the ostrich head in the sand thing. Like some people in this world are using their heads and saying, yes, things are fucked up and things are gonna get worse, and nobody's gonna do anything about it. Oil companies don't give a fuck. They're just gonna keep getting billions and billions of dollars and screwing over the regular person. But like ostrich head in the sand type of people are these fucking people who fucking they just don't want to hear it. They just don't want to hear it. They just think they just want to live their lives and be happy and not have to worry about any of the world's problems. Now, climate change is fucking real. And I'll tell you why I believe it's real. I don't just believe it's real. I know it's real. It's because I can just truly tell that there's just something fucked about the weather. It just feels weird. It's like it will go crazy raining one day and I'll look outside and I'll just be like, this just doesn't, like, I know it rains hard where I come from, but the temperature, everything seems so at flux, and it just goes and jumps and bounces around in a fashion that doesn't feel familiar to me. It doesn't feel familiar. And a lot of people all over the world are saying those kinds of things. Things just don't seem normal. And I think that's the better term for global warming, is it not that it is, yes, warming, cascades of things, but I think that it's like one of those things that's in balance, every like millions of years, it kind of goes like this and kind of like goes back and becomes into flux. And then it goes out of control and it's like this, And like Greta Thunberg is a brilliant young child who just out of nowhere was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to have to live with this shit and nobody gives a fuck. Because all the old ass boomer fucking oil executives are the ones who fucked us all over. Because they knew that big business and corporations were causing this. That all that shit was contributing to the very delicate balance of this earth. Because at the time, a lot of people thought it didn't matter. I mean, the world's a big place. How could fucking this? But it's totally real. Climate change is gonna happen. And I think the things that are like, right back to Katrina and, like fucking hurricanes, the floods, all this shit that happens is happening for a reason, and it's something that, as humanity approaches the future, there's really not a lot right now we can do about it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like you could stop every single thing right today. It would cause like a complete global change in the way we do things. You know, maybe there wouldn't be as much electricity. Maybe there wouldn't be as much. Obviously, big assholes with their big fucking stupid trucks, they would have to stop driving those, and they'd cause a revolt and maybe another January 6th insurrection. Because those are those kinds of people. But if you look at it, I mean, really, what can we do? We're just gonna have to accept it. And I think as time goes on, I think the things that will happen are things like a lot of flooding. I mean, I see it all the time in Canada here. There's huge amounts of floods and forest fires, and you cannot for fucking 1 sec tell me that shit is, just like, oh yeah, just it happens. Like, I know it happens, but it doesn't happens in a way now that's just like, it's just constant. It's just like, it's constantly in the news. You constantly hear about this. You constantly hear about floodings. Every summer there's forest fires and floodings. It's just like crazy. Hurricanes, there's always big hurricanes coming through, which is normal, but it just seems like it's so much more than was like, I'm in my 30s, but so I'm not like 60 or 70, but I've heard people who are older like that saying that, like, yeah, there's way more droughts now, there's way more flooding, there's just, things are out of flux, and they seem to getting more and more and more and more out of flux, and I think the things that we'll start to see, and the problems that as humanity approaches this kind of the snowball effect, sort of, that it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse, is things like people from countries that it'll just become so hot it's uninhabitable, so they'll have to leave that place. So when you're locked into a country, what do they have to do? They have to migrate to a different place. They have to leave places. There'll be food shortages, wars over food, wars over water, massive disasters. And in a way, I believe humanity will just kind of cope with the suffering, because if an asteroid came, took out the Earth, that would be instantaneous, complete and utter devastation and death, and widespread possibly extinction of humanity, depending on the event. But humanity, like a virus, it's very hard to just completely eliminate. It's like a thing that, if 99.99999% of all humans died, and there's only pockets of them, there's a chance we could just survive and come off. So I think climate change is that type of thing that, people don't realize, that it's not just like tomorrow, it's not just be like the world, climate change destroyed the world, but it will lead to a huge time in our history where things just change. It just all changes. It's just like certain places of the coast uninhabitable. Major cities become kind of ghost cities. Entire countries and regions become completely barren of people and animals, and plants and animals just completely change, because I believe in nature. I love nature. I think nature is the most fucking cool thing that we can learn about and understand in this world, and nature's gonna adapt. Like, this isn't gonna kill nature. There's, even if human beings nuked all over the fucking world, nature would still find a way to survive it, because that's what nature is. Nature is an incredible force that you can't really defeat easily. I mean, there's so many times in history where nature has been obliterated and came back just like nothing. So climate change is not the end of the world, but it's going to be the end of the way we interact with certain aspects of our lives. Less food might lead to unimaginable amounts of suffering and starvation, incomprehensible amounts, because like humans are greedy creatures and they will fight to death over food. It's just how people are. You take the best fucking most happy-go-lucky person, and when it comes down to it, they're gonna fight to survive no matter what. So climate change isn't the end of the world, but it's more of a tide that will just sweep through and cause suffering. And is there something we can do about it? Probably. There's probably more we can do about it than we realize, but you never get human beings to work together. You just can't. You can't. It's physically and theoretically, it's just completely impossible to have as many human beings as we have on Earth work together towards one common goal. It's impossible. You can't do it. You can have groups of people that kind of see eye to eye and do little changes here and there, but as a collective, as a species, we can't do anything to prevent our own suffering. There's just no way of doing it. So I think that climate change is 100% real. Anybody who thinks it's fake or hoax is a fucking idiot and just has no idea what anything kind of science or any of the workings. And it makes sense just to think about logically. So climate change, 100% real. Will it cause the end of the world? Not really. But lots of people things are gonna change forever for them. And not only that, but people are gonna start being terrified by some of just the ferocity of some of these events and how they unfold. And I think in general, some people might not even really notice it. I mean, they might see all these things happening all over the world, turn on the news, oh, who gives a fuck? Try to say. But here is the one determining factor. As certain countries and regions become, loss of food and uninhabitable regions and stuff, people, like I said, are going to fight to the death to fucking survive. There's just no way around that. And I think it's going to lead to a lot of wars, food, water, shelter. People will fight wars over those all the time, and they always have. So as those things come less, the war rises, and that will be a problem. It was always a problem for humanity. Wars have always been a problem, but as that snowball effect hits, more people are going to transfer towards fucking war and fighting over resources and just taking. So I think climate change is real, and it's going to be something that's going to become a major part of younger people's lives. It's going to become a major thing, because even now it's stopped being like this wild, crazy conspiracy theory, and people are kind of just like, yeah, it's going to climate change, it's happening. You get these nut jobs who think that it's not, and it's some conspiracy, but people who look at the world logically just know that our industry and our contamination of the world isn't going to go unchecked. It's not going to go unchecked. It's going to be a painful and long lesson for humanity who have raped the natural world for so long. It's going to be a painful lesson, and in many ways, I hate oil and gas, and I think that those motherfuckers kind of deserve what they're getting, and if they lose plants and they lose industries and all these billionaires suffer, then kind of brought it on themselves, That's my thing. Humanity has only themselves to blame, because as a collective, we're still selfish individuals in this world.